FITC is pleased to introduce James White. James is a visual artist and designer from Halifax, Nova Scotia. In this presentation, titled Back to the Future Part 2, he will expand on last year's session to discuss selling your personal artwork online while sharing some of his personal adventures. Please welcome James White.
Thank you very much, everybody. Signalnoise to me kind of represents, this is my website and my company that I run in Halifax, out of my home office, very small, one-man crew. But this is basically my own corner of the internet that houses all my stuff. Getting hung up here. So I registered in 1999, a long-ass time ago. It just celebrated its 12th birthday. Just weird to me. But registered, and here's a version of the very first website that I designed. I designed this a day after I registered the domain name. Lots of Photoshop stuff, trying to experimenting with rollovers and things. And I look back at this stuff, and it's funny to me, but I can see exactly where I was in terms of progression, experimenting with Photoshop, learning those layers and overlays and all that stuff. And the preceding 10 years, I designed a lot of websites for myself. Here's a whole bunch. And I look back at these and I can see what I was into at the time, what I thought was cool, and in terms of internet trends too, like what was hip at the time that these were being made. So a lot of stuff, I was really looking for a place to house my artwork on the internet, my own little corner of it. And to do that, I had to develop a logo, and here's a whole bunch of Signalnoise logos that I designed throughout the years until I eventually landed on the Rainbow Sun. Thank God I didn't go with the headshot one, right? That's me, like the Bono thing. God, I don't know what that one didn't last too long. So again, while I was developing my website, I was trying to develop content for this thing too. So I was drawing the entire time. I would always grab my sketchbook, go to my favorite watering hole or whatever, and just sit there for a couple hours and draw. And I would explore all the ideas that I wanted to do, like comic book stuff, portraiture, anything that I really wanted to get into. Exploring different things, portraits of Marilyn Monroe and giant robots, anything, all of these things. And once again, this is that blind enthusiasm that I had as a kid, making art because I wanted to make art. And this is during my time at agency work. I'd work 9 to 5 and then go home and work on my own projects. And I'm going to outline some of those personal projects. Here's a bunch more: Superman, Bowie, just doing whatever I thought was cool. So at the same time that I was drawing, I always had other projects on the go, and here's one of them. This is a series called The Coiled, and it's essentially my first really big foray, whatever that word is, into doing Photoshop and overlays and trying to piece things together like found artwork. All of these are royalty-free photos that I found online that I kind of pieced together in Photoshop, really trying to learn my tools. This was early to mid-2000s or something, just trying to see how things worked. At the same time, I was really into Illustrator at the same time. I did all of these things, drawing, Photoshop, and Illustrator, pretty parallel with everything. And these are some monster posters that I developed back in I think the mid-2000s or whatever. And this is heavily influenced by Shepard Fairey, Obey, still one of my favorite designers. And the funny thing about this, I mocked these up in Photoshop before I actually did all the vector work in Illustrator. So, and this one here, the King Kong one, makes me laugh every time because the body is actually the rubber suit from the 1940s movie. I found a screen capture of it and I mocked it up. And the head is actually Photoshopped on, and it's a gorilla yawning. So it looks like he just woke up and everybody's attacking him. That's how that came about. And I decided at one point that I wanted to really meld my drawings with Photoshop. And this is the very first time I ever actually charged into some writing, too. This is called a children's book that I wrote called Jacob and the Vanishing Door. It never got published, but I did a lot of work on it. I developed all the character designs and scanned them all in, did all the Photoshop work, overlays, everything like that, just trying to push my art into one thing, having the natural extension of all the drawing that I did as a kid kind of melding with this Photoshop experimentation that I was doing in my actual career. So that's a bunch of that. That was really fun to do. I wanted to do a comic book too. If you ever tried to draw a comic book, it's a hell of a lot of work. Holy smoke. And I only got 9 pages in, and I was sick of drawing the character that I created. So this is the cover for it, Fausto, and this is based on a painting by Edward Hopper, the cover there. And one of the pages that I thought was the most interesting. Giant robots and fire, man. I just wanted to do stuff again that got me enthused when I was a kid. I just love this childish stuff. At this point, I wanted to do toys. And I was like, well, what can I do with toys? I can't get into producing my own vinyl toys or whatever. So what I decided was I would make, who would I want to make toys of? Me and my friends. So that's me and my friends. That's actually me in the top row, second in. That's me up there. And this is basically all my friends back from Halifax. And what I did is I developed these in Illustrator, printed them off on cardstock, and then I cut them out by hand. And then I fashioned little stands for them so they'd actually stand up. And, and then what I did was I developed the thing on the side over there, the green thing, is actually I would cut them out and I would put them in Ziploc baggies and then stapled them to a backing board so they actually looked like action figures in a package. And I called them the Adequate Lads because I think we're pretty adequate guys. For real, I did this. Then I decided I wanted to get into Flash animation, so I decided to develop these little critters. I called them the Planet. That was basically what it is. It was a giant orange planet, and I developed a bunch of bad guys that would basically hunt down these cute little robot rodents and stuff. And it was kind of a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner sort of thing. Super fun. And then I realized I started animating it in Flash and went, holy crap, this is so hard. I don't know how people do it. So anyway, this here. But the Planet designs, the little black and white dudes right here, were actually the springboard for these vinyl toys that I wanted to produce called the Orbinauts. So these are actually an extension on the designs. I developed the chest logos, the overall logo, the packaging, and actually my buddy Jonathan Mitchell, who's a really good 3D guy, he actually took my flat designs and developed them into actual 3D renders. And I can remember the day he sent me that one at the top of all four of them with my artwork in the background and stuff, and I almost started crying because like I don't even care if these things exist now, man. Look, they look real to me. I had it as my desktop pattern for like a year. Basically what I showed you guys is a quick sum up of all of the projects that I've been working on my own time. Okay, I wanted to stress that. Like this isn't stuff that I worked on at an agency job or things that people were asking me to do because I was going to get paid. I did this stuff because I love doing it. And this is an extension, again, on the stuff that I did when I was a kid. Like I just did it for the love of creating it. And I do think that's a really powerful weapon that we have, just that raw kind of just love of creating artwork, making things cool, making things we like, you know? So what is inspiration? Let's talk about this. This is another little subsection of the talk. Now, according to Wikipedia, it's an unconscious burst of creativity in a literary, musical, or other artistic endeavor. And that's pretty good. That's not bad. It's a bit dry. But the only word I don't agree with is unconscious. I don't think inspiration is necessarily always unconscious, like it's always a bolt of lightning that comes out of nowhere. I think inspiration is something we can actually, it's a muscle. And the more we use our muscles, the stronger we get. And I think that's how I look at inspiration. It's something that we can actually use when we need it. And just looking at our lives, looking at our experiences, and drawing inspiration upon that. And things we thought were cool, we didn't understand why. That's inspiration to me, you know? And I wanted to tell a story. I went to the Louvre with my girlfriend a couple of years ago in Paris, and the Dying Slave is there, Michelangelo, which was awesome. I've only seen pictures of it, so you can walk right up to it, you can get this far away, and you can actually see like the etchings and where Michelangelo actually sanded down the sides of it and made it look how it is. And that was really, really inspirational to me. Like I wanted to tear to the Louvre and go and make things. Now I didn't want to tear to the Louvre and go make statues because that's crazy and probably expensive. But I just wanted to create things. Like that's what inspiration is to me. So. Inspiration, to me, is any force that motivates one to do something creative. And it could come from anywhere, and it could mean anything. You could see something and go, wow, they put a lot of effort into that. I want to put a lot of effort into this other thing that I'm doing. You know, and that's what inspiration is to me. It's just motivation, just raw motivation, man. And to me, nostalgia is like huge. Obviously, I'm up here talking about when I was a kid. That's basically the whole point of this thing. Like at that point in my life, back when I was a kid, you know, playing cars in my jammies on the living room floor, and it's that point in my life that is huge to me. This time, you know, and I'm still into that stuff that I was into back then. And the reason for that, I was thinking about it. It all comes down to imagination. You know, imagination is the most powerful thing that we can have as people. Imagination means we create things in our head that don't exist. That leads to innovation. You know, and this is the point in my life when it was just 100% imagination. You know, 80% of my day was running around in the backyard, you know, being a turkey playing G.I. Joes or whatever. And that's where I gained a lot of inspiration from that era of my life. So posters. Posters is kind of, it became my medium of choice over the years. I love the shape, like for what it's worth, rectangle. But I just wanted to create things that were in poster form. I love the blank canvas. I love exploring different ideas, and you can do anything with a blank canvas. I just love it. So I wanted to show you guys some of my favorite posters from some of my favorite designers. This is the Star Trek motion picture poster by Bob Peak, and I love it. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for this creative meeting. You know, Gene Roddenberry's there, and Bob Peak walks in, and he goes, "Hey, Bob, you got any ideas for that poster?" And he just goes, "Giant rainbow!" And then this emerges. And it's like, it doesn't really, for those who have seen the movie, it doesn't really represent the movie in a visual way. The visuals kind of look like this, but not really. But it's just, it gains interest. There's a lot of heart. It's the theme of the movie, which counts. It's not focused on the three characters. They're part of it, but it's more focused on the Enterprise, which is the theme. It's the symbol of Star Trek, and I just love that. Here's another one by Bob Peak, if you guys can see this, Rollerball. I love this poster, compositionally in particular. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's badass, but I like it because it's just this spiked character with his fist up like that, looking really, really angry and intimidating, and it's offset by these almost slow motion figures down at the bottom with the ball gowns and the tuxedos, and it's just, and they're offset, they're off center, and I love it. It's such a contrast. It just breaks apart the poster in such an amazing way, and I want to see this movie. I got to see what this thing is about. That makes no sense to me. So brilliant. I love those posters. Let's move into Drew Struzan. Drew Struzan is I maintain he's the greatest painter of the 20th century. And Pablo, Picasso and Dali and all those guys, whatever. Struzan was the man. I just love it. And he created kind of his own genre of poster creation. All of his stuff is painted. There's no computers, which in itself is amazing. He's proficient as a painter, but he has this method of watering down kind of the symbolism or the themes of the movie, the characters, the heart. He simplifies it down into its base level, and then he creates a composition using his studies to create something that draws you in. He calls it the bullseye method, where you're drawn into a certain point in the poster. And it's brilliant what he does, and this is one of my favorites, Back to the Future. Now this one here is probably my favorite movie poster of all time, The Thing. The Thing, I love the movie too for what it's worth, but I love this not only because it's beautiful, but because of the story behind it. John Carpenter apparently called Drew Struzan the night before they needed this poster done. And they said, we need a poster, we need it for tomorrow morning. Now he paints all his posters, remember that. He said, we need it for tomorrow morning, we have this presentation we got to do, whatever. And luckily, it was a remake of a thing from the 1950s, and Drew Struzan had seen the movie. It takes place in the Arctic, there's an alien bouncing around from person to person, identity, paranoia, all this here stuff. And that was basically the theme of it. So he basically said, okay, I'll do it. Hung up the phone, got a bunch of pictures taken of him in a parka. And that's Drew Struzan there. And then he started painting, and the next morning, this is a poster that emerged. There was no time for change. There was no time for creative direction. There was no time for any of that stuff. It was just 100% raw instinct. And this is what he produced. And the reason I love that story so much is because if John Carpenter had called Drew Struzan a month earlier and said, hey, Drew, in a month we need this poster, would the poster have been necessarily better? Food for thought, huh?